If the zombie virus was used on the battlefield of World War II, what kind of effect would it have? The story takes place during the Spanish Civil War. To test the latest development in biochemical weapons, a group of Nazi soldiers drove to a village where a wedding was held. The originally happy atmosphere suddenly became tense. The newlyweds could never have imagined their wedding would soon become a funeral. An imperious Nazi officer stepped out of the car. He looked around with pride. When the groom saw this, he asked the boy to give the officer a glass of wedding wine. The officer also gave face but choking on the wine. This funny scene caused the villagers to laugh, but soon, they will never laugh. The officer was instantly furious. The officer wanted to keep them alive for a few more seconds, but now he had to move forward with his plan. As the officer dropped his glass, he gave the order. In just under a minute, all the villagers present were killed. The lively wedding instantly turned into hell on earth. But it didn't end there. All the Nazi soldiers put on their gas masks and threw the biological weapons into the pile of corpses. As the blue gas drowned the bodies, they would rise again. Not only that, but the Nazi officers used this horrible biological weapon on the battlefield. They used fighter planes to drop them on enemy camps. A German fighter was destroyed in one engagement, and the pilot landed in the jungle a short distance away. This scene was just seen by Jan, who was on a mission. Although they were not Spaniards, they were still on the same side. So Jan was ready to suspend the messenger mission and go to the crash site to rescue the pilot. Soon, he arrived at the crash site with his driver Cruz. In the wreckage of the fighter, Jan found some strange blue powder, but he did not care. Right now, saving people is the most important thing. They saw the pilot hanging from a tree not far from the crash site. His legs were blown off, and he had no vital signs. At that moment, a small group with weapons suddenly appeared behind them. They were guerrillas from the opposing camp. Seeing that many people are on the other side, they can only obediently surrender. The guerrilla leader asked them what they were doing here, but Jan tried to resist. But the next moment he was subdued by Matacuras from the group. Matacuras wanted to kill him with a knife, but the captain stopped her because he wanted to know what the Nazis had sent them here for. They must have some important information on them, but after a search, only a letter was found in Jan's pocket. It was just a letter with some insignificant content. Faced with the captain's questioning, Jan was also confused, saying he was just a messenger and had no knowledge of the contents. The captain had no choice but to take them back to the camp before making plans. But just as they were about to leave, the war correspondent wanted to take a picture of the dead pilot. But the dead pilot came back to life. Before the reporter could react, he was pounced on the ground by the pilot and frantically bitten. The screams attracted the attention of the team. The brave Brodsky immediately grabbed the pilot and threw him out. At the same time, his hands were covered with a strange blue powder. But the next second, the pilot without legs crawled over again. Brodsky shot at the pilot, but he felt no pain. The rain of bullets also failed to stop his attack until the captain shot him in the head. The pilot only stopped attacking. He has been infected with the biochemical virus and turned into a bloodthirsty zombie. But the crowd did not know what was happening. Just when they were confused, the bitten journalist also underwent a mutation. As he lunged with his teeth bared, Brodsky grabbed him and snapped the zombie's neck. But this did not kill the zombie. The only way was to attack the head. At that moment, countless German fighter planes crossed the sky. The partisans sensed something was wrong and immediately got up and returned to the camp. But when they arrived, they found the camp was already in shambles. All the teammates in the camp were wiped out, which was obviously the work of the enemy aircraft just now. The blue powder was also found at the site. Matacuras wanted to check on his teammates, but he didn't expect them to open their eyes suddenly. Like the pilots and journalists in the jungle, the dead teammates also mutated into zombies. But it wasn't over yet. Other teammates whom the bombing had killed got up one after another. They panic. One team member saw his father among the zombies. He walked over without hesitation. Despite Jan's obstruction, the result was predictable. Seeing this horrible scene, the others also realized that these people were no longer the same as their former comrades. So they turned their guns on them, but in all directions are zombies, and the people can only retreat to the river to take a small boat to leave. The captain again questioned Jan about what the Germans were planning, but Jan repeatedly said he did not know anything. Looking at his innocent look, the captain had to untie him. After all, in a situation like this, where zombies are everywhere, only by working together can we improve our chances of survival. But soon after they went ashore, they were attacked by zombies again. The zombie virus has spread. Cruz was so scared that he was frozen in place. To cover Cruz's escape, Brodsky was bitten by a zombie on his calf. He grabbed the zombie and looked at him. It was a child, and suddenly his heart softened. This also allows other zombies to have the opportunity to take advantage of. In this way, the strongest man in the team became a buffet of zombies. The team was helpless and had no choice but to continue to run for their lives. They walked until dark and finally came to a house with lights on, but they didn't expect to find a German officer, a nun, and a sniper in this dilapidated house. As soon as they met, the scene was immediately tense. If they were not careful, a war would break out. But just at this time, Decruz's gun accidentally went off. Everyone immediately tensed up. The battle was about to start. At the critical moment, Jan came forward. He said the biggest enemy is not each other but the hordes of zombies outside. Only if we are united can we hope to survive. The crowd heard this kid was very reasonable, so they decided to turn the war into a good thing, temporarily forming a doomsday escape squad. But how did the zombies appear? They still have no way of knowing. Late at night, Jan inadvertently lit the secret letter, discovering the secret inside. He did not expect it to be a map, but before he could study it carefully, the zombies came swarming back. The dilapidated house could not withstand the attack of zombies, and they had to escape through the back door. Before leaving, Mecha also forgot to throw a bomb into the house. As a real man, Mecha never looks back. When it was safe, Jan took out the map. A spot was marked on it. He guessed that there must be some ulterior motive there, so the group agreed and decided to go and find out. Soon, they reached their destination. The point marked on the map was the village where the Germans had started testing the virus. They then walked into a church, which the Germans had long converted into a biochemical laboratory. Various experimental instruments were covered with blood stains. The scene was shocking. At that moment, a woman came out of the darkroom. She was the bride of the wedding and the village's only survivor. Thinking about the German atrocities that day, the bride was still haunted. She told everyone what had happened. At the same time, Decruz, who was working on his car outside, heard the commotion. He sped up his work on the car. The people in the church were about to leave when Commissario Politico blocked the door with a gun. The crowd was confused. It turns out that he had found the research data on the biochemical virus. He wanted to eliminate everyone except the guerrillas and take the information himself. With this biochemical weapon, the guerrillas could win the war, but the captain didn't agree. He knew the horror of the virus and aimed his gun at Commissario Politico. Just then, Decruz bursts in. He is taken hostage by Commissario Politico. Just as he pushes Decruz away and prepares to leave alone, a horde of zombies suddenly pounces on him. Commissario Politico has torn apart on the spot. The front door was filled with zombies, and the others had to leave through an underground passage. But on the way to escape, the bride suddenly mutated and jumped on the German officer. The officer stomped her to the ground. Matakiris takes the opportunity to kill her with a shot. Then they open a metal door, and they finally escape to the outside. But the nun at the end of the line locks herself in. The captain, who did not know why, went to ask the nun and realized she had been bitten. To avoid getting everyone involved, the nun chose to buy time for them to escape. Then Jan found through the binoculars that the truck was not far away, so he called Decruz to go over to check. Since the Nazis developed the biochemical virus, they must have the antidote in their hands and might be able to stop it all. It took a little while for Decruz to bring the truck over. Without delay, they rush towards the barracks but don't notice that Decruz's arm is dripping blood. The next day, they arrive safely at the barracks, but the general only allowed Jan to enter. Jan doesn't want to abandon them. The general warns Jan that the experiment of the biochemical virus has been completed, and they will soon clean up the whole test area. The entire valley will be razed to the ground in a few hours, but Jan remained unmoved and turned around and left. After all, Jan was his nephew, and he told the Nazi officer that the bombing had to be delayed. But the general was just a pawn, and the Nazi officer killed him outright. When the others learned of the bombing, they did not intend to sit idly by. They were ready to blow up the barracks and go straight in. But who was going to carry out this difficult task? When everyone was at a loss, Decruz stepped forward. He showed his bitten arm to the crowd. Instead of becoming a zombie, being a real man was better. Everyone knew the consequences of being bitten and had to respect Decruz's choice. But as soon as he rushed to the barracks, the sentry knocked him down at the gate. They thought the mission was a failure. But Decruz became a zombie the next second and stood up again. He didn't forget his mission and continued toward the barracks against the heavy bullets. Under cover of the sniper, Decruz managed to reach the barracks entrance, seeing that the mission was about to be completed. But he was shot in the head by the other side. But at the last minute, Decruz detonated the grenade in his hand. With an explosion, a gap was opened in the gate. and the others took the opportunity to enter the camp. Jan looked back and found that the hill was densely packed with zombies gathering towards them. It seemed impossible to turn back now, and they had to enter the cave's interior and fight the Nazi soldiers head-on, and the zombies also poured into the cave. This ended the war between humans, and everyone unanimously turned their guns on the zombies. But there were so many of them that the last line of defense was soon breached. The entire camp became a zombie orgy. The Nazis also paid a heavy price for their actions. The survivors had to fight and retreat. The snipers were covering from high ground, but zombies were everywhere. The sniper was unfortunately dragged away by the zombies. The officer and Mecha are also trapped inside the vehicle. Zombies surround them. They are in a desperate situation. They finally choose to ignite the bomb and die with the zombies. The remaining three are ready to split up. The captain starts the train, and Jan and the others go to find the antidote. They break into a train car laboratory and run into the Nazi officer who has finished injecting the zombie virus. Jan asks him if he has an antidote, but the Nazi officer says there is no antidote. Their purpose is to strengthen the soldiers' combat ability. Seeing that the Nazi officer was about to mutate, Matacuras killed him with a single shot. Although the culprit was solved, the sound of gunfire also attracted the zombies. Jan wanted to see if there was another exit, but a zombie was tied up inside. He was inattentive and got bitten on the palm of his hand. Matacuras first took care of the zombie, then picked up a 40-meter knife and rushed towards Jan, cutting off Jan's bitten arm with a knife. Although not tried, this method should work. Matacuras had just bandaged Jan's wounds when the zombies broke in. They had no choice but to hide in a laboratory chamber. The enclosed space smells of hormones. Their relationship gradually heats up. In the presence of the zombies, they kissed. At the same time, the captain started the train. The zombies also swarmed after he shot a few zombies and chose to commit suicide. The fighter jets that received the bombing mission arrived immediately, and the train rushed out of the cave. With an explosion, the train was only minimally affected. The snipers survived. They had the protection of the experimental chamber and managed to survive. But at the movie's end, they don't get to be together because the war will continue, and they're on different sides. They will not have results together. Under Jan's unwilling gaze, Matacuras left in style, but on the other side of the train, the Nazi officer did not die. If you enjoy videos like this, please subscribe to this channel to get our latest content. Thank you for watching.